Welcome back to the Tax Advisor and Biz Coach Success Podcast. The purpose of these episodes is to help entrepreneurs become more successful, avoid tax and other business headaches. Remember to tune in frequently, as we will be sharing tips, secrets, and expert recommendations in how you can manage your finances, improve wealth, and grow your business. Please like, share, and subscribe. Here's your host, Liz Soria.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to another exciting episode. I am your host, Liz Soria, the Tax Advisor and Biz Coach Success Podcast. Today, I have another incredible host, a guest joining me, and she's also a podcaster, by the way, and she's by the name of Rhoberta Shaler. And today's topic, we're going to talk about something I think is really, really interesting, is how to deal with difficult people, or as we call it sometimes, toxic personalities. Dr. Shaler, welcome to our show, and please allow the audience to understand a little more your expertise and your background and why you specialize in what you did.
Sure. Well, thank you for the invitation, Liz. I'm happy to be here. What I do is I work with the partners and the exes, the adult children, and the co-workers of the relentlessly difficult people that I call hijackals. And these are the people that I gave that name to because when you have a difficult person in your life, you often go to Google and you say, well, this is happening. And Google gives you a psychological diagnosis. And that's not really fair, and it's likely not accurate. So I wanted to have a term that talked about the traits, the patterns, and the cycles of these people so that we can know how to interact with them, how to understand the dynamics and what to do and what not to do, as opposed to giving them a psychological label that we're really not qualified to give them. I may be, but average person on the going on Google is not. So that's what I do, and I have clients all over the world. I've written 16 books, and people can find me at FOR Relationship Help, HELP.com.
Excellent. Well, and Dr. Shaler, tell us a little bit, how do we really deal with difficult people? Because I think when it comes to friendships, sometimes it's a little bit easier to disconnect with those kind of people versus to a spouse or perhaps even a family member. Any tips you can share there with us?
Sure. Well, that's a huge topic, Liz, but Let me just give a few general ideas. If you have a person in your life that you never feel quite safe around, you never feel like if you give your point of view that there's going to be any agreement or understanding, that maybe they'll just say, oh no, you're wrong, or they'll jump in with an opposite point of view. Or one of the ways that you can tell is if the other person says something and you think, oh, I agree with that, so we're on the same page, you say, yes, I agree with you, and then they say, well, no, that's not exactly what I meant, and they make you wrong again. Right. You are with a relentlessly difficult person. And what we need to know about those people, particularly the ones that I call hijackals, is that they are dedicated to winning.
Oh, really?
They have to win in every moment. And it's a psychological thing for them. It's not that they get up in the morning and choose to be like that. They have been in an environment that conditioned them to be like that. That's the only way they know to survive. It happened when they were quite young in most cases, and for others there's severe trauma a little later in life. So they're not out to be that way. They just are that way, and they're very afraid, and you would never believe that because they are often so confident.
Right.
So when you have these people in your life, first of all, you have to know, even though they make everything your fault and make you wrong, it is not your fault and you're not wrong. So you need to understand that when you feel that energy and you have that happening all the time, it's not about you. Second thing is that they like to select just one person here and there to be their scapegoats. They may put on a public picture of perfection to the world, and then at home or in your private office or whatever, they will create a private place of pain. And so when you go to someone, you say, I am having this trouble with this person, they say, well, it must be your fault because they're so wonderful. So these are things you have to watch for, because if you're with a relentlessly difficult person, a chronically difficult person, you will have that problem over and over and over. It is not uncommon for that to be the basis of your relationship. But they may be having a different relationship with a whole lot of other people, and you will be misunderstood, and you will feel doubly wounded then when you go to try and say to someone, I'm having this problem, and they will say it's your fault. In fact, I have clients all over the world, and they tell me that they go to counseling with their partners, and they're desperate to have their situations seen.
Sure.
But so many therapists are not familiar with this. They don't see it often enough. They haven't experienced it. And so why the hijackal goes along to counseling is so that they can manipulate, exploit, and seduce the therapist into believing them, and then they gang up on the partner who went there hoping for help.
Now, they think they can manipulate the counselor too in this case, right? Because like you're explaining, doctor, it's facade that they're doing. So they're showing the world, I'm almost great, I have a phenomenal personality, but yet, like you said, it has to do with even the principles, how they were probably brought up, you know, their home and in their, because I always say this, parents did the best they could to bring up the children. And that came with the good, but also with the bad, right? There's no parental book, as many as there are out there, that really tells you chapter by chapter how you need to raise up your children. So they do the best that they can do. And I think that you're right. They just develop this kind of personality that I think feeling that they over control someone else makes them feel stronger.
Yeah, power and control.
Power control.
Yeah, my definition of a hijackal is a person who hijacks a relationship for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenges it for power, status, and control.
Wow.
So that's what they will do over and over and over. And it's so important to know if you're with a hijackal. You know, I have Facebook groups, I have Patreon groups, I have all of these people who tell me, wow, until I found your work, I didn't know what was going on. I was confused, I was unhappy, but I didn't see it. And the first thing is to actually see it, to recognize it, and then to realize that this has been abusive for as long as you've been in that relationship. And when you really get that down to your toes, then you're ready to move on to making some changes, to begin to recover and remedy and restore yourself.
Wow, that's incredible. That's very deep. And I think, like you say, recognizing, that's a very good word, because sometimes people are in denial.
Yeah, oh yeah, denial is rampant because the hijackal wants you to believe it's your fault. And they will wear you down and tear you down until you go, oh, I'm not very good. I should try harder. I should be more patient, more compassionate, less demanding. And you start taking it all on as though it's your fault that all this is happening. And that's exactly what they want you to do. So they're trampling you. And pretty soon you're flattened and you don't have any energy to even speak up or fight back. And then life becomes very difficult because you feel hopeless and helpless, and you're not. You're absolutely not. You just need more skills. That's why I offer the free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal. If any of this sounds familiar to you, you want to hop on over to hijackals.com and get that. And you spell that hijack, ALS.com. You know, you need to know what the traits and patterns are so that you can know for sure, that's describing the person I'm having trouble with.
Excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, the traits. We need to find those signs.
Yeah.
Because again, I think that especially, I think it becomes even more difficult, like I was saying in the beginning, when it's a spouse, someone that you've been with, sharing your life with for so many years, and perhaps, you know, that's your parents already. That even makes it even more complicated. So, and I think it's to a point that, especially for women more, right? You probably, I don't know if you might agree with me, might see this happening more, where we feel that the man has that control in the household where, whatever they're saying, however they do things, we should just follow through. And when we contradict, then, it's like we're not doing the role of as a good mother or as a good spouse, because the man still has that control over, how things should be done. But I think what's interesting is that I see that a lot in relationships, and, people that they just stay together just because they don't want to be alone. They're afraid of being lonely.
Well, I think that's true. And to your point, most people who accept a hijackal in their lives are people who have been raised by a hijackal parent, or have been raised to believe that everybody is good and they give them so many second chances, and therefore they second guess themselves. And so those are really big things to have a look at. And when we are just too Pollyanna, when we just think everybody is wonderful and everybody's good and everybody is having a bad day and I can sweep in and fix them, then, we have to remember we can't see red flags when we're wearing rose-colored glasses. We have to wake up and say, oh, whoa, this is not okay with me. I don't like how I feel with this person. Let me actually whip off those rose-colored glasses and see what's really here. Because you deserve to be treated with respect.
I agree.
I've written 16 books, Liz, and one of the books, now of course many of them are about hijackals and passive aggressive people, but I did write a definitive book called Kaizen for Couples, and in that book I give all of the things that I work with my couples with, so these are good things to have. And in there, one of the big things that in a healthy relationship exists is mutuality. That means that I want for you what you want for yourself, and I'm willing to put in that amount of support and love and listening, and that's going in both directions. And when you're with a hijackal, it's only going in one direction. There is no mutuality. So you have to wake up and realize that, like you were saying, and if you were raised in a certain time or in a certain culture, you may have even more deference to the man in the situation. And that's not our culture here in the United States and Canada. It's much more individualistic. Each one of us deserves to be seen and heard and be an equal. And my thing about healthy relationships is they have to be equal, reciprocal, and mutual.
Absolutely.
And if they're not...
And I'm sorry, by all means to interrupt, but when I say men, I see women too also,
Yeah, well, there are just as many hijackal women as men. There are, but the thing is, we need to also recognize those cultural things. Like I have clients in the Middle East. I have clients that are in Asian countries. Okay, they have a different approach to it, but they just giving deference because of someone's gender is not wise. It has to be because of love, and it has to be love that can be seen and experienced, which means that there's kindness and honesty and respect and trust. And if those things are not being demonstrated, then it's time to wake up and smell the herbal tea,
I like that. That's good. Now, from your experience, Doctor, do you feel, again, because of the culture background and things like that, have you seen a lot of good success when the couple really are consistent in their therapy or their counseling, however you want to define it, where they can really succeed as long as they're consistent of both of them wanting to make this relationship work?
Absolutely. The thing is, once you're in something, I tell my clients often when they come as a couple, okay, when you are two goldfish in a bowl, you can see each other, but you can't see the bowl, you can't see the water, and you can't see the bigger picture. You can just see each other. Coming for help means you go to someone who can sit back and has the training to see the goldfish and the bowl and the water and the outside environment and what that whole thing looks for. And then they can give you strategies for getting along better, for communicating better, for managing conflict better, for having great conversations that lead to deeper emotional intimacy. You know, it's not just let's make it work together.
Right.
It's really an exciting adventure to have an emotionally intimate relationship where you are vitally interested in each other and each other's growth and what each other's thinking and feeling in a very healthy way. And that it becomes the center point of your life, because you can go to it for nurture and for care and support, and you can go out in the world and feel better because you have each other's backs, and you have that one person who knows you better than any other, and they want to. And that's what we work toward when both people are willing to entertain the idea that this could get better and I want it to.
That's the reason why now I understand why you're called the relationship help doctor, because you definitely have expertise in it. And I think it's important. And I always say this, we do need help sometimes. It's just recognizing it and being, embrace it, open up yourself to the possibility of getting, help from a professional, because not always we can do all of it, on our own. And sometimes we do need someone to kind of intervene and help in the process of not saying you're guilty, and you did this, and you did this. It's not about pointing fingers and trying to blame others, because as we know, when we blame others, it makes us feel better. And it's just a way of us justifying our actions and the things that we're doing wrong as human beings.
Yes, and think about it this way. People ask me sometimes for a metaphor of what I do, and I tell them, I'm a life mechanic. You take your car in, you don't try and fix it yourself. You could get all the books, you could take all the training and everything, but that's not how you spend your time. I spent my time learning how to be a life mechanic. I have a PhD in psychology. I have mediation training. I have all of those things. That's where my expertise is, just like that person who can fix your Audi, So it's wise. Strong people go and get help. You don't try and fix your car or let it sit out in the driveway dripping oil forever because you're too embarrassed to take it to the shop. And the same thing should happen with your relationship. I want this to be the best it can be. Let me get it some help. Let me find out what I'm not seeing. Let's find out what's possible here. And that's what strong people do. Strong, motivated people who want an emotionally intimate relationship, and to have that as a model for their children. Because remember, your children are watching you from the moment they draw breath. And they're deciding how to be a man or a woman or a man or a woman in relationship by watching you. And they're learning who they are by watching you and your reactions to them. So you have a huge responsibility as parents to be the best models you can be. And that requires help sometimes.
I like that definition. So we can see you like you can do a tune-up in a relationship. Exactly. Let's call it that. I love tune-up, a relationship tune-up, because sometimes we do. Again, sometimes it's not intentionally, like you said. I think a lot of times people do things, without even realizing, without even thinking about it. And like they say, once you spoken your words, you already did the damage. And it's sad to see that. Because a lot of people who might be listening, to this podcast or through, my YouTube channel, the reality is that, we all need to see that abuse doesn't only come from physical. It comes from verbal. It comes from mental also. So
emotional, psychological, spiritual. I have many, many people that I have worked with over the years, Liz, who are being spiritually abused because they have a partner who will look for power and authority in some kind of spiritual organization or religious organization, which is the ideal place to make people wrong, right? And so then they will use whatever writings that organization has to make people wrong and to make people feel small and to make themselves into authorities. And they will abuse them spiritually in that way by allowing them never to feel good enough or always less than. So all these kinds of abuse exist. I call these people emotional terrorists. And it just rips you apart, and they hold you hostage. And that's why it's so apt to call them emotional terrorists. So if you feel you're being terrorized every time your partner comes home, anybody listening feels that way, think about these things. Maybe you're in a relationship where there is no equality or reciprocity or mutuality, and you think by being a better person, you're going to create it. Yeah, by being a better person, you are bringing your best to the relationship. But if that other person has no inclination or intention or willingness or interest in bringing their best to the situation, or their best has nothing to do with being loving, you have to look at that with very clear eyes.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100% on that, Doctor. And, you know, we're talking about more now, we're emphasizing more relationship and things like that, but we're dealing also with family members. It could be your family, right? Because here's the thing. Reality is that we don't get to pick our family members, right? They come part of the package. We get to pick our friends. And I think that's why sometimes we have more flexibility to pick and choose what we want when it comes to friendship. Because if you're able to recognize those red flags, as I call them, right, in a friendship, well, let's be honest, you just get rid of those people. They're toxic. So they're not good in your life. They're not bringing anything positive. But when it comes to family, like I said, it's more delicate because it's not something you can say, okay, goodbye, I'm never going to talk to you again. So,
yeah, you can.
You can. Okay. And so how do you do that? Because we're talking about relationship as spouses or lovers in this case, but also family members.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know, a toxic person is a toxic person is a toxic person. Whether you're related to them or you think they should love you or you want them to love you or you want them to approve of you, hijackals make a life work of withholding approval and love. That's how they control you. You know, that was my mom. How do I become such an expert in this? It's not only my PhD in psychology. I lived this. You know, I lived this. I was raised with a hijackal mom. Unfortunately, she had a traumatic experience having electroshock therapy. Apparently, before I knew her, when I was 2, she had electroshock therapy. I never knew that she was this lovely person. And then she became this hijackal. That's the only woman I know. I have walked this. Therefore, I attracted a hijackal partner. I have been there, done that. I have the ugly video and the ragged t-shirt. Believe me, I have walked it. And you can say no to these people. You can go no contact with your mother or your brother or whatever, because they too are toxic and you don't deserve to be treated poorly. I don't care if you're related to them or not. You know, you may have extra considerations around leaving that kind of person, and you may need more help to do that because you feel beholden and obligated in some way because of family ties.
Obligated, that's right.
But the thing is, no, you don't want toxic people in your life. It's unfortunate. You know, I will never experience a mother's love from the person I call mother. Yeah, there's grief and loss in that for all of us, but that doesn't mean that I wanted to speak to her. Now, as it happened, I continued to speak to her throughout my life, and I nursed her to her death with cancer years ago. But that was because of who I am, who I choose to be, not the nasty person she was. And there's a distinction that always has to be made. And you have to keep yourself safe. We're 100% responsible for teaching people how to treat us. And if a hijackal won't accept any boundaries, which they likely won't, then sometimes you have to go no contact with them.
Well, this is such a great point, Dr. Shaler, because I'm thinking here as you're talking that, you know, like I said, it's difficult when it comes to family because there's a tie, there's a connection there, a bloodline.
Yeah, I mean, history.
Yeah, but we need to also open our eyes and we need to see the reality, because just because you're a brother or a sister or a cousin or even an uncle, an aunt, whatever it is, maybe it's not the kind of person you want around you, especially on a daily basis, right? At least if you can put a little bit of separation, a distance between the two of you, once you're able to recognize those red flags and say, wait a minute, you know what? Every time I'm around this person, I feel heavy. I feel down. I feel depressed. I feel angry. Whatever might be that negative emotion that you're getting, that's a sign too that's telling you something's wrong. There's a disconnection there happening with that other person, no matter even if that person is your family member.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, there are all those ties. Yes, there's shared DNA. Yes, there's obligation and things built into cultures and the way that we think about these things. But when things are not loving and normal, I mean, sure, we're going to have ups and downs, but when you have somebody who is constantly putting you down, making you small, withholding their approval, degrading you, devaluing you, using you, you know, I do a lot of things on Facebook, and I have closed and secret groups there for people who want help with this kind of thing. And I do a lot of putting up graphics. And one of them, Liz, says, hijackals don't have love to give you. They have uses for you.
Wow.
And you really
That's profound. That's very profound. Say that again.
Hijackals don't have love to give you. They have uses for you.
Uses. Wow.
And, you know, that's one of those moments when your heart just goes, oh, yes, I feel used and I want to feel loved, right?
We all deserve to be loved. And I tell that, you know, when I see entrepreneurs, because as you know, we work long hours and sometimes we have so much pressure going on around us because we have to deal with strangers too. They're toxic people and they have that kind of personality. And, you know, we need to know how to deal with these kind of people. There's just different personalities. But I think what's really important is that if you don't feel happiness, and that's really crucial in life, you have to be happy no matter where you're at in your life right now. And if you have those people around you that are just putting you down, it's time to recognize that, like you said, and see those signs and get some help, because that way you feel the support that is not only coming from your mind thinking, I don't know why I'm thinking about this person, but it's perhaps your gut feeling telling you, hey, you need to separate yourself from this person because it's not bringing you anything good to your life. It's putting you down. And we all deserve to be happy. I really say this to the entire audience. And you know what? This is where we need some help. Other people outside our tribe to come in and say, hey, I'm here to support you. I'm here to kind of guide you, to help you ease your process.
Yes, and think about what happens when you have a hijackal sibling and your parents are near death. A hijackal sibling will come in and they'll try to get everything. They'll try and take everything. They'll you know, try to abscond with the finances. While your parents are elderly or ailing, they will try and go and prevail upon them to give them money and to do things like that. And then the other siblings are watching this going, hey, that's not fair. That's wrong. And then you think, oh, what can I do? Well, you must step in because your parents are being abused at that moment. And they are going to persist, and they will, in fact, take the day if you don't step up. And the earlier that you see that, the sooner you have to step in and say, no, you've got to go in and get that power of attorney with your parents. You've got to have those conversations with your parents. And sometimes that's tough, especially if you leave it too long. Many times I'm called, even though the people are in different parts of the world or the country, to mediate the difficulties that happen after a parent has passed, and you've got a hijackal who's trying to take over everything and win, you know, get everything. That's what they want because they believe they deserve everything and they should have it. And this happens in so many instances in life. And another thing for your audience, I mean, when you think about the tax implications of being with a hijackal most hijackals, what they try to do is they like to have control of the family finance.
That is so true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, I had an episode with an expert that actually helps women in this case before they get divorced to prepare themselves financially, because most of the time men have the control. And by all means, I'm not going against you, but I'm saying because of, again, the culture, especially depending on what country you come from, has that control of saying, okay, I pay the bills and I bring the money and I do all these things. And what happens when the spouse is gone? You know how many situations there have been where they have passed away suddenly, and the wife is there. It just looked
Nothing.
around and said, I don't know how to pay the bill. I don't know how many
I
accounts.
don't know where the money is. I don't know whose name and things are in. I've had clients, Liz, who and I always say this, I'm going to preface it with this. Someone asks me, what should I do? I'm in this situation. I now wake up and realize I'm with a hijackal. What should I do? And I tell them, no, yeah, run later. Because if there's no physical or sexual abuse, you should do your own work first. And that means getting your mindset changed, understanding what's happening to you, understanding and empowering yourself. But it also means exactly what we're talking about. You've got to have a good look around. You've got to find out where the finances are. I've had clients who, when they did that, I can think of one in particular, Liz, and it's kind of shocking.
Okay.
In this case, it was
story.
The guy was a hijackal, and I was working with his wife. And remember, there's an equal number of male and female hijackals. So
absolutely, there is. There's a mix. Mm-hmm.
But the guy was so persuasive and so manipulative that he went into the bank and he schmoozed up to the person that he needed to talk to. And he said, I really need your help. My wife is so ill and she can't come in, and she really wants me to take her name off the house. She really wants that. Can you help me with that? I know that it's going against protocol, but can you help me with it? And he was so manipulative that he got her name off the title to the house, and she wasn't even ill.
What?
So you have to, you're absolutely right. You have to be very careful before you leave to start having an account of your own. You have to start recouping what you've missed in the relationship. You've got to find out what's actually true. Where are the finances? Whose name is the house in? Whose name are the cars in? Whose name have been put on the debts? All of these things have to be figured out. So very important. And when you figure that out, you become in a much stronger position to be considering leaving the relationship.
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. We had some technology issue here with the internet connection. What I find really interesting, if you can hear me now? Yes? Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. One of the things that I say with this other expert guest that I had, I don't mean to bring him up, but it kind of touches what we're talking about in the subject, is that he is, besides certified financial planner, he does something, I can't remember his credential, but if people want to watch, is Ed Vargo, one of the interviews that I did. And he really helps women to prepare, like I said, before the divorce, or even before, sadly, a death. You need to have an idea, at least. I'm not saying that you're going to take over, but at least have an idea what your finance, where you're standing at, because otherwise you're lost.
Yes, and one of the ways that you start to empower yourself is by jumping into these investigations and finding out, okay, I've been letting this slide for a while, and perhaps too long. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to have any fight left in me, so I've just let it happen. And now I'm going to get up on my back legs and say, no, I'm going to figure this out. And you quietly go about your business, finding out where the finances actually sit. And you get bank statements, and you have a look, and you see where the titles are, and you understand what the financial situation of the family is. I had another couple where the man was siphoning off money and sending it to Switzerland, and he kept going to court and saying, we don't have any money. I can't pay her any support because I don't have any money. And, the thing about hijackals, and I've helped so many people go to court with them. I even work with their attorneys to understand the thinking on the other side. But with this fellow, I had to keep saying to my client, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there, as long as you can. And I know it's expensive, but keep going to court, keep telling the truth, keep finding the evidence. And the hijackal will implode. And one thing people need to know is hijackals will fire attorneys until they get a hijackal attorney.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then you will have two hijackals in court.
Oh, no.
Right, and it's frightening, it's daunting,
yes.
But you have to hang in. So in this situation, she hung in. Eventually, she was living in her car because he kept withholding funds and lying and doing things. But I said, he will implode. He will implode. And eventually he did. And the thing is that he's in prison, and when he gets out, he's being deported to Switzerland because she hung in. She was able to prove what he'd done with the money, been able to prove that he lied about absolutely everything she had, and that he was money laundering through his Swiss account.
Unbelievable.
But you see the strength it takes to hang in. You know, when you've been worn down and torn down, degraded and discounted by a hijack call, sometimes you figure it out, I don't want this person anymore, but you're so tired that you just say, I just want out. I'll take the clothes on my back and out. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless there's physical or sexual abuse, do
Right.
what I said. Do your own work first. Prepare. I have a product coming out, actually, that is something that I did with a divorce attorney.
Okay.
And we have a 7-part program coming out in the next month, which
Excellent.
is how to prepare to leave. All of the steps and why. Because you need to leave powerfully, not leave with your tail between the legs and I'll take what I can get, but to leave like, no, I deserve half of everything that's gone on in this relationship, and I am not just lying down and letting you take whatever you want. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot, but you will feel so much better afterwards, and it will not be pleasant going through it. But if you have support and understanding as you go through it, I walk with my clients through the whole process. And, you know, they can stay the course and they can get out of it. And I can help them know when to cut and run and when to hang in. Because there are some things that the courts will do, some things they won't. I mean, there's a lot that you have to bring in terms of experience of how the courts run when they meet a hijackal. Because remember, courts only see a snapshot, and you're living the video.
That's right. That's so true. Dr. Shaler, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You just brought up so many interesting, topics and things to look out for, that sometimes we ignore or we want to ignore because, again, we are in one of those kind of toxic, relationship, whether it could be, and one of the things I'm going to recap really fast is we talked about relationships, right? Whether it's your spouse and lover relationship, we talk about parents also when we have siblings that are creating issues and we need to defend our parents also in a situation like that, or even business partners. That can happen in any type of relationship. It's a relationship. You see business partners that one has more control than another one. And by the way, it got nothing to do with they're female. I've seen a lot of this happening with males. Okay, 2 men, 3 men in a partnership, and one of them always had that stronger control of domination, of trying to do everything and whatever they say has to be done. So we need to look out to these kind of things because it is important. I mean, to have a healthy relationship, no matter what type of relationship, sometimes we need to see outside our bubble because sometimes we're too blind when we're inside, that bubble, right?
And we're worn down. We're tired. And it's really important to get clear. And when you have clarity around what actually happened and you get away from just the feelings, then you can take active steps.
And let me ask you something. Sorry about that. If I can. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was you are a podcaster like I am, and I have actually heard some of your episodes. They're amazing. So I wanted to share this and bring it up, during your episode because anybody who's listened to this episode, by all means, go and reach out to Dr. Shaler because tell us about the names of your podcast because you've been doing this way longer than I have. So you're a pioneer in this. And I always call it that you have to have a calling to do this. You really do. People don't realize how much time we spend talking and trying to give as much information out there because I think we have a dharma or a mission, if you want to call it, to help as much as possible people out there, even when they cannot afford to hire us directly. By giving this information, we're helping people. Yeah. So what are the names of your podcast and your website? Anything that, my audience can reach out since they might need help from you in relationship situation?
Sure. So wherever you like to get your podcasts, you will find mine. And one of them is called Emotional Savvy, the Relationship Help Show. That's where I have guests The other one is called Save Your Sanity, Help for Handling Hijackals, where I do most of the talking there and then do bonus episodes with guests with pertinent information. I have a YouTube channel at For Relationship Help, which is the same as my website, forrelationshiphelp.com. I also have a TV channel on Binge TV Network that you can get on Roku and Apple TV and TiVo and all of that, and it's called Emotional Savvy. So there are lots of places that you can get my help. You can find many of my books on Amazon. And I do have an introductory offer for anyone who wants to speak to me. I do an introductory 1-hour session with them for $97 only. So they can find out what's possible if we work together. And it's a full session. It's not me trying to convince you to work with me. It's me giving you a taste of what it's like to work with me and get some results. So all those things are there. I absolutely agree with you, Liz. I feel our legacy is more important. People ask me what gets me up in the morning. Well, what flips my skirt and floats my boat is that I help people stop tolerating abuse. And that's what I do in the world. And that is that calling that you spoke about. I don't want anyone to have to take as many years as I did to figure it all out as to what happened with your parents, why you attracted a partner that was difficult, what the impact is on your children, how much backtracking you have to do and how much learning you have to do. Let's all figure that out as early as possible by using all the information that's available.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It's been a great honor to have you in my show, and I wish you a lot of success to continue because, like I said, you not only have one, you have 2 podcasts plus the TV and everything else, so it's incredible. So I wish you a lot of success, and to everyone out there, please, like I said, if you need help, goodness, I don't know how to say this so many times, reach out. Get professional help. That's why there's so many wonderful people like Dr. Shaler who's there to really help you. And remember, the more confident we feel, the more ease, the more peace, and the happier, the more we can give out that vibration, that energy out to the rest of the world. So once again, Dr. Shaler, it's been a pleasure. And I hope we stay connected and hopefully do something else in the near future. It's been an incredible experience. And to all my audience out there, thank you for watching, liking, and sharing. And please make comments. If you have questions for Dr. Shaler, put it on the YouTube comment box. And I'm sure I can forward that to her, and she might be able to answer some of those questions. And like I said, reach out. She has an introduction, offer, and I think that's awesome. Thank you so much. And folks, I will see you next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.